A significant winter storm could impact the Midwest and the Northeast by next week. If we were to take a look at the latest depiction of the European model, we of course see this low pressure system moving out the Northeast at this time, and behind it we have a very significant jet stream dip, bringing much cooler than average conditions to much of the eastern half of the United States. However, the storm won't be over just yet for the Northeast, because there is that possibility that another low pressure system will develop just outside of New England, where you could see some snow showers right around portions of New England. So make sure to pay close attention to that. It won't be anything major. I'd say mostly you'll receive maybe around 3 inches, but that's about it. However, the next major winter storm that the European model is forecasting is expected to happen towards the end of next week, where we do see, of course, low pressure system move through towards the midweek as a result of the atmospheric river that's going on. That's still going on right around the west coast. We have a multitude of low pressure systems moving that are expecting to move through the United States, including this low pressure system. However, since there's a big ridge located right around the eastern half of the United States, we're going to see the common trend where this low pressure system will move well to the north before it could reach the northeast. So for the most part, it'll be a rain event outside of the areas right around the northern Midwest, where you'll mainly experience light snow from this low pressure system, since there isn't a high amount of instability. Just watch out for some heavier snow showers just to the northwest of this low pressure system, but I'd expect mainly around 1-3 inches associated with this next low pressure system. But this isn't the major winter storm that the European model is forecasting by next week. It's this low pressure system that's expected to come off the California coast and then eventually move eastward by the Tuesday to Wednesday time frame, where we're going to see this low pressure system meander right around the Colorado area before eventually moving towards Kansas by late Wednesday into early Thursday, where we see a high amount of instability. And as a result of a ridge that's expected to build by the time the low pressure system moves into the Midwest, we're going to see a strong southerly flow. So that's going to bring a lot of that warm, moist air further northward to interact with this very cold air mass that's located just to the northwest of this low pressure system, which is a major difference between this model and the GFS model, because the GFS model doesn't expect this ridge to build as quickly further eastward, which means that the GFS model expects less of a strong southerly flow. So we see less instability and a lot more of a weaker storm in the GFS model scenario, since there's a lot southerly winds are a lot weaker in that scenario as a result of the ridge building a little bit more slowly and a little bit further westward to not bring that southerly flow associated with this low pressure system. So we see a higher level of instability with the European model, but not only that, we see a low pressure track that brings the storm a lot further northward a lot more quickly as a result of the strong southerly winds associated with this ridge. We do see heavy snowfall throughout Chicago. Milwaukee's getting involved. We do even see areas as far south as Detroit and northern portions of Indiana and Ohio get involved with some snowfall before eventually changing over to rain, as it's very similar to the storm tracks we've been seeing all winter long for the eastern half of the United States, where we've been seeing the storm systems move a lot further northward a lot more quickly before they could approach the northeast. So for the most part, anywhere that's maybe not located in the northern Midwest is pretty much experiencing a rain event, and the European model is forecasting a very similar scenario. However, a lot of the major cities still get involved with heavy snowfall, such as Chicago, like I said, Detroit, Milwaukee, the northern portions of Michigan, Missouri, Iowa, all get involved with heavy snowfall. And there could maybe be that possibility that snow does impact the northeast. If we were to see this ridge bring a little bit more of a stronger northerly flow on the eastern side, then we could see just enough cold air for this precipitation to fall in the form of snowfall. However, the European model is forecasting primarily a rain event outside of the areas in the interior northeast, which has been a common trend this winter, but we still do see a very significant snowstorm for much of the Midwest, where this will approach the Chicago area right around Thursday, as well as Detroit, Milwaukee. So you want to pay very close attention to this. However, this forecast is far from certain because I'm going right around 6 days out with this forecast, and of course a lot could change between now and 6 days, and the forecast becomes more uncertain because the GFS model is taking a pretty different scenario when it comes to the trajectories of the low pressure systems as well as the strength. Let's take a look at the GFS model scenario right now. Taking a look at the GFS model also expects some snow showers to occur right around the eastern portion of New England, and the GFS model also forecasts a low pressure system to move through the Midwest during the midweek, bring a decent amount of rain showers to the Midwest and some snow showers on northwestern portion right around Minnesota. And it also agrees that a pretty powerful low pressure system coming off the California coast will eventually move eastward. However, the big difference between the GFS and the European model is that we see that this ridge isn't necessarily very far to the east just yet, and that's key because this ridge was pretty much the key factor in creating a highly unstable environment right around the Midwest for the European model. And since this ridge is a little bit too far to the west to bring a strong southerly flow to force that very warm and moist air further northward, then we're seeing a much weaker storm in the GFS model scenario. And as a result of the lack of a strong southerly flow, we're seeing this storm move more of a due east direction or a due west direction. Due east direction rather than more of a northward direction, since the southerly winds are a lot weaker in the GFS model scenario. So as a result, we see a much weaker storm, but it does bring some snow showers right around Indiana, and it does bring some snow in the areas a little bit further southward in the northeast, where this would be a more significant northeast snowstorm threat if the GFS model scenario was correct. But it still primarily impacts the interior northeast, where we pretty much see Boston miss out on most of the snowfall, and New York City, Philadelphia, and Washington DC entirely miss out on the snowfall. But there's still a lot of uncertainty with the forecast. If we do see that this ridge brings a little bit more of a strong northerly flow, then we could see that cold air move a little bit more southward than anticipated, and it will really all depend on how strong this low pressure system moving through the United States will be. If it's a little stronger, then we'd see more of a strong northerly flow to force that cold air further southward. But if it's a little weaker, then we're less likely to see that cold air move further southward. So a lot to keep in mind. We're going to need to see how this ridge builds. I'll keep you guys updated over the next several days, because this ridge will be a key component in determining the trajectory as well as the amount of instability this low pressure system will encounter. So I'll keep you guys updated over the next several days. Taking a look at what the European model is forecasting when it comes to total snowfall accumulation over the next 7 days, we do see that there's a very significant snowstorm for much of the Midwest, where we do see the northern portion of Illinois experiences 6 to 12 inches, including Chicago and Milwaukee. You guys experience 6 to 12 inches of snow, and in the northern portion of Missouri as well as Kansas, you do see that you're expected to receive 6 to 12 inches of snow if the European model scenario was correct. But that's still a big if. We're going to need to wait and see how the ridge positions itself to really determine the amount of instability and the exact track of this storm. And for the Northeast, we do see that mainly the snow is exclusive to the interior Northeast, where we do see a little, I'd say mostly 3 to 6 inches at least associated with this snowstorm. The pinks you see, those aren't really representative of this same snowstorm, as this snow is pretty much additional snow on top of what you're experiencing with this current snowstorm in the Northeast. So I'd say mostly 3 to 6 inches in the interior Northeast associated with the same snowstorm the European model is forecasting. Take a look at what the GFS model is forecasting when it comes to snowfall over the next 7 days. We do see that there's a narrow area of 3 to 6 inches for the most part, and this does impact the areas further southward in the Northeast, but this also brings heavy snowfall to Cleveland as well as Indianapolis. You do get more involved with snowfall, and Kansas could see a small area of 6 to 12 inches if the GFS model's scenario was correct. So still a pretty big difference between the European model and the GFS model, but I'll keep you guys updated as the certainty changes with the forecast. So here's what you should expect if the European model scenario was correct, which I do believe would be the more accurate model since it has been more accurate this winter. We do see that a large area of the Midwest experiences 6 to 12 inches of snow, and this snow could potentially move further southward if we were to see a stronger northerly flow, but most likely the heaviest snowfall will be throughout the Midwest and potentially the interior Northeast if the European model scenario was correct, but there's still a high level of uncertainty, so I'll keep you guys updated, but I'd say we lean more a little bit to the European model since it has been the more reliable model this winter thus far. So we're just going to need to wait and see how the forecast changes, but there is an increasing possibility that we're going to experience some sort of major snowstorm by late next week. So I'll keep you guys updated, but thank you guys for watching.